were doing better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
All right, well, let's transition directly into our next guest. Next up, general partner of Automotive Ventures, Steve Greenfield. Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Good to see you.
Welcome, Steve.
Good to see you guys.
Steve, glad to have you on.
I'm honored, and you squeezed me between two really great presenters, so I'll try to live up to their standards here.
No, we're doing a world tour today. We got geopolitics, we got venture capital, auto tech. Then we're going to soon have OEMs. Yeah, I know, right? Steve, for those unfamiliar with you, can you just give a brief intro about who you are, what you do?
Sure. 25 years in auto, spent 10 years at Manheim, the largest auction company in the world. Spent 5 years at Auto Trader, which at that point was the largest classified site in the world. And then a couple of years at TrueCar on the West Coast. And then 5 years ago, decided to do a pretty dramatic pivot with my career, started a venture capital firm, Automotive Ventures. And we're now on our third fund. We've made 45 investments in 5 years. And we're hunting the globe for really talented entrepreneurs who are trying to solve really, really big problems in the automotive and more broadly across the mobility spectrum.
Excellent. Steve, can you give us an update on just the state of auto tech venture capital? Lots of dealers over the past couple of years have invested in, automotive startups, things that they're using in their own stores or benefiting them. Some have even actually launched their own auto tech startups from within dealerships. We'll talk about that as well. Can you start with just an overview of the state of auto tech?
Yeah, so I think you've characterized it quite nicely. I think the valuations are down pretty considerably over the three or four last years, which isn't great if you're a founder. It's been a hard time to raise capital over the last 18 months. So that isn't getting any easier yet. And I think until the IPO markets open up, there's a cascading effect back to earlier stage stuff. But to your point, I'm amazed. Even this morning, I talked to a dealer who's got a couple of stores, and he's got software he's built internally that he wants to take to other dealers. The barriers to entry for software development are so low now. And it's amazing now. The three of us over a weekend, we could spin up a brand new software product and start selling it to dealers. So I think we are on the cusp of I'm sure we'll talk about AI, but even outside of AI, we're on the cusp of, tremendous innovation where 10 years ago, it was expensive and hard. You had to hire a CTO, et cetera. Now we've democratized software development, which is going to mean that we're going to see a wave of new innovators helping dealers solve some of their biggest pain points.
Well, Steve, you've been on the forefront of a lot of innovation in the industry. You didn't mention it, and I think it's important, but you worked on some of the biggest M&A and acquisitions in our industry, right? Auto Trader, KBB, I believe, and you name a bunch of other names. What's next? Where do you see these companies that I just mentioned, right? They have obviously grown tremendously and became staples within dealerships. What are you seeing next when it comes to that next wave of must-have tools and tech within dealerships?
Yeah, so I think that dealers should be excited that now it's going to be easier to build software, and in some cases easier to build software yourself. So if you've struggled in the past and been concerned whether the silos around data, dealers always complain about that, whether that my software vendor isn't reactive enough and can't get me the solutions I want, all of this is going to get solved pretty quickly here, because you're going to be able to build your own software and or at least push the vendors to innovate much more quickly. On the flip side, if I'm a vendor, I'm one of these legacy vendors, it's concerning, right? There's speculation out there that software as a service might go away entirely as we sort of enter into this new AI-fueled era. And a lot of the defensible moats that someone might have had around their software might start to evaporate. It's exciting on one side. I think it'll be it'll be very positive for dealers. They're going to see a wave of new entrepreneurs attacking the space, providing new solutions. But I think for some of the incumbents out there, it's a little concerning when they're trying to figure out how much of a threat AI might be in general, and whether the moats that were defensible in the past will continue to be something that they can depend on.
Do you think dealers should care? Do dealers just benefit from this, or do dealers, have to actually, does it destroy any value within the dealership? Right? Like what actually, how do you see this playing out and ultimately impacting dealers?
Yes. So maybe I'll defer to Sam here as the expert in-house. But, I think that I would talk out of both sides of my mouth, right? At one point, dealers should be more excited than ever. I mean, the cusp of innovation that's coming is going to be, in some ways, maybe overwhelming, right? I mean, imagine when we go to NADA, like Bernie just said, in a few months, we're going to see all sorts of AI tools, and dealers are having a hard time making sense of like, is there any value to these things, and what should I adopt, and how should I adopt these things and internalize these with my processes? But at the same time, I think the challenge is going to be keeping up to speed on all this stuff. Like we could spend all of our time just reading the press and trying to understand. ChatGPT has just launched a new AI tool. We had news here this week about Apple's AI initiatives and what that's going to mean when AI is on every single device in all of our pockets. And I think this is going to be the challenge: is like, how do you filter out the signal from the noise, so to speak, and make sure that you're staying abreast of relevant information, but not getting overwhelmed with the sheer magnitude of like these press releases that are coming out. And I think that the buzz is only going to continue to build to a crescendo.
Yeah. And so, Steve, I would actually add to that one of the biggest challenges with AI in today's world is there's so much of it. It's devalued every new idea out in the marketplace because there's all these promises, and so few of the promises actually get executed on. And in automotive, I think part of what makes us successful in automotive is we're fast to execute, we're fast to produce a result. And I think a little bit that's why automotive in some areas is so resistant to AI as it completely taking over. Yossi and I've talked to many BDC directors where they're like, you know what, we still like a manual BDC because we understand it. I think these AI companies need to do better at making the promise, delivering on it, and understanding what the implications are. And then the other challenge is there's so many disparate systems still that one thing that brings them all together still remains a challenge, and fully understanding all the consequences. And I would actually ask you, in your role, looking at what are the effective AI tools, how do you break through the noise? How do you find those tools that work? And do you have any recommendations for dealers? You've created great programs in the past that have made dealers a lot of money. If I'm a dealer today, September 2025, frustrated with the AI noise, how do I break through that and find the real tools that will help me make money and deliver my best to customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think about this a lot, right? It's getting harder and harder to get time and attention to folks like you, Sam. You're a busy guy. In addition to running a bunch of dealers, you're on here, and you're trying to get on your schedule to pitch you for 30 minutes is almost impossible, I'm certain.
Well, you got to come on here because this is where we all learn together. This is our Dealer 20, right? So yes.
There you go. But yeah, I think that step one is to push on your current vendors, right? So every vendor by NADA will have a new AI module. I think sit there because, as you said, Sam, that's where your data is now. Your historical transactions, your consumer data, et cetera. Find out what your existing vendors are. But then on the other side, be very open-minded. In some cases, these big vendors, and I've been there, I've worked for a number of them, are very slow to move. And these new startups can move so quickly that if there are big opportunities, big pain points that you're suffering, I think push first on your existing vendors, but then be open-minded to who's out there that might solve these things. With the caveat, as you said, Sam, is like, the data integration will continue to be an issue. And you may find a startup that's really onto something with a great founder. They've got a good value proposition for you that's solving a big pain point. But if they can't integrate back into your data, are you just going to continue to be frustrated?
Yeah. Steve, you mentioned the barriers to entry are lower for creating software. I totally agree. Yet the probability of success also seems a lot lower. And I think too, the fact when I just talk to dealers off the record and they say, I'm reluctant to try another tool. I already have all these other tools. And it almost feels like common sense to me that dealers are going to continue gravitating to these connected solutions as opposed to point solutions, right? I can't have a separate chatbot and a separate CRM and a separate digital retailing tool and a separate AI. Like it's going to become too challenging. How quickly do you think that's going to happen to where we're just going to see this wave of consolidation in the industry and dealers go from using 5 AI tools for all these different departments to just one singular tool that dominates the market? Is this like a winner takes most or winner takes all situation?
I think not. I mean, I've been in the industry for a while, 25 years now, and we could have had exactly this conversation 25 years ago. And I think
the
that
internet, yeah.
you're still going to continue to see, really smart people come into the space, build really great, compelling new value propositions for dealers. They'll get acquired, so that the big incumbents realize that in many cases they aren't going to be the innovators. They're going to buy innovative companies, which is going to fuel entrepreneurs. There's a lot of M&A. We talk about M&A, and you will next with John, about M&A for the dealer buy-sell market. But there's a lot of M&A that continues around these startups. And you have the big incumbents, the CDKs, the Reynolds, the Coxes, the JD Powers. And at this point, when they look at strategy, it's as much about acquisition as it is about trying to innovate something new from scratch. And it makes a ton of sense. For $20 million or $40 million, they can buy a product that's proven and not have to run the risk of trying to launch something from scratch. And by the way, take out a potential competitor that's only going to grow stronger over time.
It's also, you mentioned M&A, and I started thinking about that time where like the lines were starting to get blurred between wholesale and retail.
Yeah.
Right. Wholesalers and just, getting into like dealer to dealer transactions or whatnot. But then I think about tech, and I'm like, wow, like we're seeing this in tech as well, where the DMS platforms are integrating, payment systems and, CDK, I'm using it as a real example, like the integrated payment system and inventory analytics platform, right? First thing that comes to mind is like vAuto and stuff like that. And it's like the lines are getting blurred. These companies are, they're going up and down the funnel and saying, well, how else can we replace tools that our dealers are already using, put them all under one stack so that's an easier, just a better user experience for the customer. And everyone's doing it in different ways, but you're seeing it in manifest in many different ways. I want to slightly change topic. So again, being a former, venture-backed founder myself, I think about, the power law, where there's, quote unquote alpha in our industry. And I've noticed that a lot of the big successes in this industry recently, and this might be some like, survivorship bias because I'm maybe not paying attention to others, but I have noticed that you're seeing a lot of big successes come out of dealer grown auto tech. Right. So some examples like Drive Centric, Busy Car, who's on a tear. I've heard VinQ's doing well, and I'm sure there's many other that I didn't mention. What's your take on just dealer grown tech? I mean, it seems to be doing well, or maybe I'm only paying attention to the ones that are doing well. Do you think that is where the alpha is in our industry? Do you think that is really the next generation of tools for dealers, literally dealers built by dealers? I mean, look at this platform, right? This is like, we pride ourselves in being a media platform from dealers for dealers, right? So is that like where we're headed?
Well, look, I mean, some of the VC secrets in terms of generating alpha, which for everybody out there, that's above average returns than any benchmark, like the S&P 500 or whatever, is unique insights. And unique insights can come from a bunch of different places. But I'm willing to bet that if I spent half an hour with Sam in his office and we whiteboarded, what are the biggest pain points that you've witnessed across your career that have not yet been solved? He'd probably have like 5 different businesses we could literally start right away. And that's not going to come out of some kids out of Silicon Valley, right? They may come in, they may interview Sam, but like unless they can get access to the right people that have the right knowledge, they're not going to really be able to tease out of that the right problems that actually need to be solved. We love when dealers are innovating. I love dealers that have said, look, 15 years ago, I identified this problem. I never had a way to solve the problem. And I've never had a vendor come up to me in 15 years to solve that problem. And now finally you're here, right? You're here with a company that's going to potentially solve that problem. That's the big unlock and the big aha to get alpha or above average returns that we kind of look for. It can come from a couple different sources. If you got an entrepreneur that partners really well in the early days with a couple of power user, really smart dealers, they can get that knowledge out of the dealer's brains and then they can go execute. But to your point, Yossi, I mean, it's also very exciting now that it's really easy to build software when you get dealers who say, look, I've waited long enough. Sam's sitting here and said, 15 years, I've been waiting for a vendor to walk in my door to solve this problem. And, Sam finally says, screw it. I'm going to go hire a developer and I'm just going to get started and build this myself. And this couldn't have happened 20 years ago because it was so expensive and time intensive to build software. So I think, like I said, I mean, we are going to see so many more dealers with the frustration seeding new entrepreneurs. And I think it's going to be a very exciting cusp of new innovation, a new wave of innovation that we're going to see in the space.
So is maybe part of the takeaway for a dealer audience watching that now is a time, maybe unlike 10, 15, 20 years ago, to find that developer and seed that idea and create that, is the entry that low on software development, that if the problem is more key than having the ability to create the software on the other side?
It's even better than that, Sam. So this gentleman, I won't disclose who it is, but somebody this morning running a group, he literally has coded this himself, because now this quote unquote vibe coding is so easy that you can sit there with a chatbot open on your screen and you can tell it what you want, and in real time it'll write the code, show you exactly the functionality. And he admitted, like this morning, he said, "Look, I've had 100 iterations of this thing." Since January when I started. But Sam, like literally, if you wanted to, by the end of this weekend, you could have a piece of software that no external developer touches, and it would work. It would integrate into your systems. If you could point it to the APIs from your software providers, and it would actually work. So I do think, and 18 months from now, it's going to be even easier and cheaper to build this stuff. So I think we are, Sam, to your point, on the cusp of like a massive amount of innovation. So if you're a dealer and you had this problem that hasn't been solved by vendors, that you've been sort of percolating on, has been incubating in your brain, now would be the time to start exploring this stuff.
So I'll buy it. You talk about being able to enter it into this program and it'll help create it. Where do you source the developer to solve the problem?
That's the thing. You don't need a developer any longer. Literally, the software, your ChatGPT window is effectively, it will write the code in real time as you continue to iterate and say, look, I don't like the colors in the background, or I don't like where that button is. It'll come back and say, well, what about this? And it'll be writing the code in the background. At the end of it, you take that code, you upload it, and you're ready to go. The software is live.
So there's a couple, Sam, there's a couple companies that do this, like, and there's a million, but there's Replit, there's Lovable. These are like companies that you could just literally go on it and like prompt it like ChatGPT and build your own software. It's pretty incredible. Steve, I want to ask you a question about your fund. So you've raised, I believe, multiple funds. I'm an investor in the first fund.
You are. Thank
you. Yes. So two-part question. First, I want to talk to you about how your fund is doing, and are you still raising capital? And then I want to move on to actual, portfolio companies. I'm curious to know, if there's any exciting outliers at the moment or anything that's particularly taking over the industry. But let's start with the first question. Are you still in fundraising mode? Do you think you're going to raise another fund? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of always in fundraising mode. We're on our third fund now. We've made 10 investments out of that fund. We actually wrap up the fundraise. The final close for that is in a few weeks here, and we're going to be oversubscribed. The target was 15 million. We're going to end up just north of 18 million by the looks of it. I've still got a few LPs coming in, but I think we're off to the races here. Like I said, we've made 45 investments. To answer your second question, our standout, if I can mention by name, is WarCloud, a company Yossi well. You've invested in. It's going to do extremely well for you, and very very simple problem it's solving, but a problem that every dealer has, which is, how do I get paid faster through my warranty reimbursements from the OEMs? And typically dealers have a clerk or a human that's doing them. And if that clerk's sick or lazy or not doing a good job, then it's a cash flow issue. So, WarCloud automates all that. The dealers get paid faster. There's never any errors. And we're showing, interestingly enough, because of errors, dealers on average make 14% more per RO. So we're looking for solutions like this that automate problems at dealerships using fairly straightforward technologies that have a demonstrable and immediate value back to dealers.
And I'll say one more thing. What I like about small funds, Sam, is that your interests are sort of aligned with the general partner. You go to these big funds, billion-dollar funds, and they're making so much on fees that it's like they don't really care if they get carry, right? If you sell a company and all that, it's like, they care, but it's the interests are not as aligned. And here I do enjoy smaller funds. I just think that, the general partner really has an incentive to find the winners, because ultimately they make money when you do. And so it does work out well. Wow, Steve, that's a great update. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Sam,
Steve Greenfield. Yeah, Steve Greenfield, general partner, Automotive Ventures. Thanks for being on the show and sharing some really cool insights with us on all things AI and VC. So thanks for being on the show.
Guys,
Thanks,
I'm honored to be here. Thanks for everything you do for the industry.
Thank you for coming on.